Alright, hey everyone, what's up? My name is Sean, I'm the programmer for Soda Dungeon, and I'm going to get started with the developer stream here today. So, as always, if hopefully everything's coming across just fine, if anything with the audio or the video looks weird, just let me know in the chat and I should be able to check it out and hopefully fix it for you guys. Like I mentioned, I am trying out a new microphone and a new webcam, although you probably won't be able to tell too much. So, trying to improve the stream quality just a little bit. Hopefully, the last microphone was really kind of crappy, so hopefully this one works out better. But anyway, I hope you guys had a nice holiday break for Christmas and New Year's. Mine was pretty good. Nothing too eventful though, so nothing to really report there. As always, thank you for playing Soda Dungeon. Thank you for downloading it. It's through the continued support of you guys that lets us work on Soda Dungeon and pursue it as something a little more than just a hobby. Of course, that in combination with all our help from Arma Games really makes that kind of thing possible. So, today's stream, I wanted to catch everyone up on some stuff because we've been quiet for a little while, and I would say that's it's mostly because of the holidays, and we had a few unexpected things pop up. Oh, OBS is open, yeah, sorry. I guess I don't really know what to put here. Yeah, I have trouble doing a window capture for Soda Dungeon because of how I have it set up with Flash, but hopefully I can get that fixed by next time, or just do a different version. But anyway, so yeah, today I'm going to cover what we've been working on, this whole Amazon Underground stuff that you may have seen me talk about a little bit, and then what to expect in the upcoming updates for the actual next 2 updates. So, and I have my little list here to make sure I don't miss anything. Hopefully I can get this uploaded to YouTube. I had problems converting before, but I think I have it set up correctly to record with Twitch so I can actually, with OBS, so I can actually upload a better quality archive than just the stream. But anyway, so Amazon Underground. What is Amazon Underground? If you've seen me post on the subreddit or if you've heard about it, it's been brought up a lot. So what Amazon Underground is basically Amazon's proprietary app store. And the whole gig with Amazon Underground is that if you are a member of it or participate in it, then you get free apps. Not only do you get free apps, but you get free downloads for any in-app purchases, no ads. It's supposed to be a premium app service. So we knew about this beforehand, and we were planning to get to it someday and check it out. But what we didn't realize is that Underground is not a paid service. So when we heard that they offered all this content, we assumed, okay, well, people are going to sign up for Amazon Underground, and then that's what lets them get all the free apps. But it actually turns out that Amazon Underground is free for anyone that wants to use it. You need an Android device, and I think it has to meet a certain requirement. But when we found out that it didn't cost anything, we realized that this was sort of a new thing that a lot of people were doing, and we wanted to try it out too. No one's really sure what Amazon's doing with this program yet, whether they're collecting data or they're just trying to build a large user base up front to get people interested. But the thing is, it's a very new and volatile platform, and we've heard a lot of great stuff from other indie developers about their games being successful, because what happens is that since we remove all the advertisements and purchases from the game, Amazon then pays us for how much time people spend playing the game. And with Soda Dungeon, we know that there's it's the kind of game you can set down, you can set up your team, and you can put it on autoplay for a while. And we think there's a huge potential there to put it on the Amazon App Store and make a profit with it. So we wanted to put that out, and so we got into talks. I talked with the Arma Games team and about how to best set that up. And it turns out we didn't have to do too much work, but this was right around when the holidays came up, and so they were going to be out of office for a while. I had my own family stuff to take care of and stuff like that. So we definitely got slowed down there. The big issue with Amazon Underground, what made it tough is that we want to try our best to maintain the integrity of the game. So the problem is, if you offer all the game's content for free, then it's sort of like, well, what's to stop you from just kind of power leveling through the game? And because you can just kind of go in and buy all the upgrades for free and just go through it. So we sat down and played the game for a bit and talked and thought about it. And at the end of the day, if you guys play Soda Dungeon, you're probably aware that the game's progression is mostly inhibited by the items and the gear that you get. So if you don't have, even if you have the best classes and you have all the tavern upgrades unlocked, it's not like you can just go to the end of the game. So we weren't, when we realized that, we weren't too worried about it. So we figured that would be okay, and it's just the balance we have to maintain. We don't want to. We're trying not to put this out, and we don't want to. I guess feel like we've cheated the existing players of the game because again, you can go on Amazon Underground and just start unlocking stuff for free. But I do think it's fair to say that those kind of upgrades don't really get you through the game that much quicker. The only issue we had to really tackle were the relics, because you can buy. So when you upgrade your relics, you can pay $1 to get 5 free relic. Well, not free. You pay $1 to get 5 relic levels, or you can buy it with essence. So we were going to try and remove that, but we found out that we couldn't do that. The Amazon Underground version of the game had to match the iOS and Android versions identically, so we couldn't take that out. So we had to sort of come up with a compromise where we limited the amount of paid relic upgrades you could do. So what we settled on for now, and this may change depending on just how feedback in general is, but I think what we're going to do is make it so that you can only upgrade your relics 3 times in between a dungeon trip. But that's only for the paid purchases. So if you upgrade your relics with essence, you can still, there's no limit. We're not going to change any of that. The only change is that if you were to upgrade your relics by paying for them, either by paying 99 cents on iOS or Android, or doing it for free on Underground, you're limited to 3 transactions per trip. So that's a way to at least kind of cap the potential abuse with that system, and at the same time, we feel it doesn't punish existing players because, pretty much everything in the game can be, everything in the game can be earned. So if you are big on farming essence to power up your relics, then nothing is going to change for you. So hopefully that won't be any sort of big issue. And so that's where we're at right now. And the game's actually working just fine. So let me see if Armor Games was nice enough to get me a Fire Tablet HD6 to test the game on, because we really wanted to make sure, since this is sort of, Amazon's, their whole Fire tablets, it's sort of a new thing. So, I don't know if, let me check OBS real quick. Hopefully it's in the picture. Yeah, so we have it running on a Fire HD6, and it runs great, and we're really happy with it. And so, I actually just got done testing this yesterday to make sure there were no issues. And so now at this point, all we have to do is wait for the game's next update to make sure everyone is on the same page. Because again, the Amazon version of the game has to match, all versions of the game should match, because if they don't, then you sort of run into issues trying to, when people talk to you with issues about the game, you want to make sure they're all coming from the same version, and it makes it much harder otherwise. So with that, we were originally going to wait a little bit longer to do the next Soda Dungeon update. We were going to put some more stuff into it. But with the Amazon Underground thing, when that came about, we decided, well, we need to put more, we need to take a break and do a small update so we get everything, all the versions up to speed, and then we'll move on from there once we have Amazon out. So, coming out very soon, and we're waiting in the review queue. We should be in by today or tomorrow, and it should just be a couple of days. Hopefully by next week we'll have the next version of the game ready, which will be 1.0.11. And I briefly mentioned this on the subreddit, but it's if you're confused, don't worry, because the current version of the game is 0.09. But when we moved to 0.10, we had some sort of versioning conflict on iOS. So for some reason I couldn't get it to work unless I'll minimize OBS. I couldn't get it to work unless I just bumped the version up to 0.11. So hopefully that doesn't cause too much confusion, but we'll just go with that for now. So what is in this new update? Well, not too much, but obviously there's the relic purchase limit that I mentioned before. Now I will go back through chat at the end to make sure I haven't missed anything, but I've seen a couple of questions about the crashes. So we did do some memory optimizations. We did 2 of them. One we did some cleanup on some of the audio that's used. So the game will crash a little bit less. The major thing we did is, and I'm not entirely happy with it, but hopefully we can still work on it in the future. We did memory optimizations with the audio by removing the audio from the game when the volume is set to 0. So this is kind of a workaround or a hack, but with this next version, if you turn your audio off, not just on the device, but if you go into the game, like I'll bring it up here just to make sure, like if you're on the options menu and actually turn your volume to 0, the game will basically optimize itself to not load any of the audio. And for whatever reason, that was the cause of a lot of the memory, the leaks or the crashes. So the game still won't be perfect. It's sort of frustrating to try and track this down. I've definitely spent entire days in the memory profiler trying to figure out what's causing the game to crash. And we definitely had some leads with the audio, and so that became a big focus. And the last time I tested, the problem with the crashes is that they happen, every person encounters them at a different rate. So I kept trying to do fresh restarts with the game to try and figure out when it would crash. And I was playing on my iPad Mini 2, which I'm actually using for the Twitch chat right now. So I was using the iPad Mini 2, and every time I would start a new run, I enabled the magic clock to speed it up, and I would usually get a crash somewhere between 1100 and 1200. And so when I added the memory optimizations and I did the audio fix, then my runs were closer to 1900 to 2000. So, I mean, at the end of the day, that's better, but the game still shouldn't crash. Like, that's the bottom line. The game just shouldn't crash. And I'm sort of, it's tough because I really can't tell if the problems are on my end or the software that I'm using. I never want to blame the software, but I use OpenFL, and it's I don't want to say it's untested, but OpenFL doesn't have the same user base and same propagation that other platforms do, like Unity. And so it's very possible that there are hidden issues at a lower level in terms of audio processing and graphics processing that may result in some sort of memory leak or crash. And because Soda Dungeon is the kind of game where you can play for hours at a time, it's more likely that you're going to encounter that sort of issue in a game like Soda Dungeon. So, I'll still be doing more research on this, and I would like to get the crashes to a better state, but in the least I can say that the next version will help, and especially with the audio, and hopefully I can do more from there. Maybe I can talk to the actual people behind OpenFL to get a better answer, but I mean that can be tough. They're busy with other projects too, and OpenFL is open source, so they don't have, it's not like I'm paying them to use OpenFL, so they don't necessarily owe me, like that sort of thing. OpenFL sort of carries a warning, like, hey, use this for free, but at your own risk to some extent. But that being said, I don't want to badmouth OpenFL. It's been a fantastic development environment. Sorry, I don't want to block the camera. I owe a lot of the game's success to it, obviously. So I don't want to complain too much, but I do need to try and figure out more of the issues with the crashes. So also in the upcoming version, so we've got optimizations, the purchase limit, and the other major thing I put in for this version is the item compendium. And this actually wasn't planned, but just when the holidays slowed down, I had a little extra time, and I thought I would just fit that in real quick. Let me make sure it's on the screen there. Okay, you guys can see it in the corner, right? Yeah, we should be fine. So the item compendium was a requested feature from a while back, and it was just something I added to the list and eventually wanted to get to. So now when you open up your book here, you can see that the items have been shuffled around a little bit. So we have the bestiary down in the corner now, and you now have an items option. So you can go into items, and it'll break it down by weapons, armor, shields, special items. And then it pretty much just logs any instance of an item that you've found in the game. I would say I don't want to spoil too much, but I don't think that matters that much at this point, especially for anyone tuning in to the Soda Dungeon stream. But yeah, anything you find will be added in here. Now, there's a few stipulations. You have to to get an item into your book, you have to either find it in the dungeon or buy it from the store. And so there's a one-time check. So if the game, like once you download this update, it'll do a one-time check to run through your inventory and log any items you have in there. That only happens the first time once it realizes that the compendium hasn't been used yet. So if you've ever earned any items in your current game that you earned and then sold, they won't show up in the book because the game has no record of you owning it at that point. But if you find the item again, it will be logged, and then if you sell it, you'll be fine. This is just if you're coming into the game fresh, from a previous save file. It won't include items that have already been sold. So any level of an item will log it in the book. I don't have different entries for the different item levels because that would be excessive. But you can toggle the stats. So for example, let me go back to, let's just do something basic like the iron armor. So once you find any level of iron armor, it will be logged, and you can see the stats right up here. Hit points, attack, magic. You'll see the rarity of the item, and then right below it, it'll tell you at what level in the dungeon that item will spawn. So iron armor level 1 will be anywhere from dungeon level 11 to 25. And so we don't log the level separately, but you can toggle the item's level at the bottom here. Real quick, is my mouse showing up? Okay, just want to make sure I didn't turn that off. Sorry. So you can toggle the item's level right here, and that will actually change the item stats up here, so you can see how the different levels compare, and you can also see where they spawn. So you can cycle the iron armor, from level 1 to 10. So like level 10 armor, has a much greater boost to your HP, and you'll find that between level 911 and 1125. So I think that'll hopefully help a lot of people that are trying to search for certain items to track those down. And so that should include pretty much everything you have. I feel like I wanted to make an additional note about the items, but I can't remember exactly what it was. I do have to double check. There's been questions about when. So even though in here it'll tell you at what dungeon level the items spawn at, there is a special case, and I forgot to look this up before I started the stream, but at some point in the dungeon, the game does start including any rare or legendary item into the mix, just to create a greater pool to pull from. And I want to say after about level 1200 or so, then that's when you'll start to see, I think other items from lower levels will be brought up into the potential pool of items. But again, I'll have to double check on that, so I'll either post about that or get back to you guys next time. But so that's mostly it for the 0.11 update, because again, we just wanted to get that update out quick enough so that we could get our Amazon version up to speed and focus on that. And then so again, that should be coming out next week, assuming there's no issues. There's always potentially an issue on iOS because the review process can be tough. The last few times have been fine, but sometimes they like to ding you for kind of weird random things. So hopefully we don't have to worry about that. But that is the item compendium. And so the next thing is, let me take a look at my list here. Okay, so that in itself isn't too exciting. I mean, hopefully you guys like the item compendium, but then once we get the Amazon version out, then we can actually go back to adding content to more of the main content, and so we can put it out for all three versions now. So coming up after the 0.11 update will be the 0.112 update, 1.0.112, or sorry, 12.12. So stuff we're looking to add for that version, and I'll probably do another subreddit post just to organize all this, but the first thing, we're going to add a way to convert your caps to essence. So as you guys may or may not be aware of, once you reach a certain point in the game, once you reach the gold, once you reach the gold limit of 1.5 billion, the game will start converting your spare gold into mystic caps, which currently don't really have a purpose. It's just a way to get around the issue of being able to make higher numbers. I think I touched on this last time, but basically I didn't properly account for the numbers getting that high. Back when we developed the game, I really wasn't sure I wasn't sure how much the game was going to be played and how far people were going to get with it. So we certainly put in precautions to deal with that, but people played through the game and got a lot higher a lot quicker than we expected. So the whole mystic cap thing was a way to sort of circumvent that issue. But again, so right now the caps don't have much of a purpose. And we do have plans for the future, but we'll get to that. So for now, I know that, people have been avoided banking the caps because they can't spend them on anything. So we're going to look to add a feature to convert caps to essence. So that should really help with boosting your relics at the end, because the caps are going to trade in for a pretty high amount. So we're going to do that. Sorry, my chat went down. I need to change my thing here, but anyway, sorry, my phone's also going off. Also in the update, I'm probably going to speed up a couple of extra animations with the magic clock. I think I had a request to speed up the Knight's first attack, Heaven Strike, I think that's what it's called. Speed that up a bit. I might speed up Necroblast a little bit more. Small fix for enemy HP. Once you get to certain bosses, I think their HP kind of just cuts off at some point, so a small fix for that. I've had a couple requests to make use of the magic or mana potion in auto combat. We always, I wouldn't say struggle, but we always debate how to do auto combat, because the idea has always been auto combat is kind of dumb. We've always wanted there to be a benefit to playing the game manually, even though we know that most people will play the game on auto. I mean, I think everyone does. I do too. But if you take the time to play through the game, you should be rewarded a little bit more for that. Regardless, right now, if you put a mana potion on your character, I think they just never use them. So I'm going to try and put something in that if you equip a mana potion to one of your teammates or one of your characters, that they will try to make some effort to use it. It's going to be sort of a specialized thing where it's like, okay, well, if you equipped it, then you must want to use it at some point. So I don't know what formula I'll come up with, but we'll try to work it in somehow. And then lastly, I think I'm going to remove the level 700 boss's special ability. The 700 boss being Tengen, the fighter. And so he has a fairly well-known ability that kills all of your non-fighter characters at the beginning of combat after one round. So I don't know if you guys saw or caught this a little while back, but I did a poll on it, and the results were fairly... they weren't completely split. I mean, there was sort of a lot of controversy just in the sense that a lot of people felt that the whole Tengen thing made for a more interesting run or a more interesting element to the game, which I sort of agreed with, but the overall consensus was just that it was more annoying than it was unique. So, everyone was like, it's fine for the first time you fight him, it's a neat little thing, but then after that, when you want to actually, do longer runs, it's kind of annoying to change your party composition just to account for that one boss. Although it was also found out that depending on your party composition, a lot of times you could sort of one-shot Tengen in the first round with the Dark Mages. So, but I think I am going to end up removing that. It's just, I did the vote, and that's what... I think the vote was split up at about two-thirds. Like, two-thirds of voters wanted it removed, and one-third didn't. So, I did have reservations about it, but I think I'm just going to take it out eventually and, just go from there. But so then after that, after the the point 12 update, which I saw after that, I think the next version after this will just be 1.1 because we're going to try and introduce some actual new features. Up to this point, I mean, we've added features, but everything so far has been a lot of small bug fixes, memory optimizations, small tweaks here and there. I think with the actual next version after that, what we're going to try and do, we want to start looking into more of the uses for the caps and what you can actually do with them. So we've debated adding sort of a new store where you could purchase things in caps. We don't know if we're going to do that for sure yet. In the very least, I think what we want to do is we want to have a way to round out the endgame content so that there's not such a focus on the Dark Mage. Which, if you guys play, up to the Warriors Dimension or whatever, you probably know that you can set up a team of Dark Mages and I'll have them cast Necroblast, and that just sort of is the go-to strategy, which was fine at first, I suppose, but it's not really that fun or exciting. So I think we want to try and we'll probably try to add in a physical damage relic, much like the magic percentage damage relic, so that way that can be used to better boost your other classes. And then at the same time, I will probably nerf Necroblast to some degree, just to mitigate that, because I believe the formula for Necroblast takes into account magic and physical damage stats, and that's what sort of makes it so powerful, because you have two things you can boost up, where most characters don't have that kind of ability. That thing I added in, that was sort of like a last-minute addition. Again, back when we weren't sure how far people were going to play, it was sort of like, well, okay, they got to the end of the game, and they have all the classes. Let's just give the last class a really powerful ability, and they can have fun with it. But then that sort of became, like I said, the go-to. So, we're going to try and make it so that the other classes actually have some more use. I don't know if that will be fully fleshed out in the next update. It's something we're going to have to just get feedback from you guys with and work on. And I think we'd also probably add in like a Rage Zerker relic, because he never had one. We didn't put one in at first because we were... Sorry, I'm blocking the camera again. We weren't sure how his ability was going to play out for longer runs, and we were afraid that if we also put in a Rage Zerker relic, that he would end up being too overpowered. But that clearly wasn't the case. I'm sure he has uses at some point, but everyone sticks with the Dark Mage, so I don't think giving him a relic is going to be any kind of issue. So, oh, good point. Glancing at the chat again, I could start up a run. I think I did that last time. I tend to start rambling and then I forget what's going on the screen. Although I think I'm sort of nearing a Q&A type of part of the stream. I kind of finished up a little earlier than I was expecting, but let's start up a run. We'll get a Dark Mage, get a Conscript. We'll get one of everyone here. We're not trying to do any kind of crazy Dark Mage run. So, what kind of equipment do I have? All the old Demon Shield. I never want that. I just need to sell those. Does anyone use the Demon Shield? I don't know. I put it in just because I thought it'd be neat to have stats that give negative boosts to some degree, but I never used it, so I don't know if you guys do or not. I'm sure it has its uses at a certain point, but Demon Lord armor is okay, I think, but yeah. Oh, by the way, the holiday content will last for the duration of January. So after that, you will keep any items you've earned, but at the end of January, they will stop spawning, and the whole snow theme and everything will go away. So I assume by now pretty much everyone that wants the items has earned them. They were never too hard to get. But inevitably, at some point, I'm sure some people will start playing the game, after that time period, and then they're going to miss out on those items. And so, at some point, we may look into some way to change to let you change the season, or do something like that. It's not a high priority, but we'll just keep an eye out. If it's a highly requested thing, then we'll look into it. But let's see. All right, let me take another look at my list here, make sure I didn't miss anything. I think that covers most stuff. And and then in addition to the whole thing with purchasing new relics for the with caps or whatever we decide to do, we do also want to do some new classes too. But I think we'll probably wait until we at least balance out the Dark Mage a little bit more before we add in classes. Because again, the focus with the classes is to try and have them each provide a unique thing to the game. And so, if we start adding new classes and the Dark Mage is still the go-to class, then I don't know. I think it'd be better to balance them a little bit better and then go into adding classes. But I won't say too much about the classes. I don't want to spoil anything. Hopefully we can work them in an efficient way. And I'll probably post on the subreddit a little bit to try and figure out what kind of abilities you guys think would be good for that. As in, like, what unique abilities we can give to new classes to make them useful at a higher level compared to the other classes. So we'll go with that. And also, if anyone's in the chat, feel free to message me about that or just post in the chat. But at the end of the day, it's always best to post on the subreddit, just because it's more of an organized, collected group of information. It's easier for me to see, and it's just easier to respond to. And I also, as always, with any idea mentioned for the game, I always prefer to have the feedback of other players. So that way, you know, we know what ideas to focus on. Because otherwise, because I definitely get people have emailed me ideas, and there's been some neat and interesting ideas, but without the feedback of the other players, it seems kind of isolated. It's like, well, yeah, I guess that could be cool, but I don't really know for sure. I don't know if that's what I need to focus my time on if I don't have any other input for that. So again, you know, post on the subreddit. So, you know, we'll go with that. But now I think I'm going to take a look at the chat here. I want to scroll back to the beginning and try to answer any questions that I may have missed. Also, if you guys have any additional questions at this point, please post them in the chat and I will take a look here. All right. So PoopShark54 says, I beat the game a month or so ago. Is there new stuff to do? Well, if you're at the Warriors Dimension, and you have all the classes unlocked and all the upgrades, there's not really much new content after that. There are, I think some of the highest level legendary weapons don't spawn until level 5 to 6,000. So if you're really interested in those, you can go look for those. But aside from that, that's probably the extent of the content until we add in some new classes, and I'm not sure where we're going to take it after that, whether we're going to try to do new enemies. We've also talked a lot about a crafting system, a crafting and or enchanting system, so that we could add some new items. But also, much like the relics, we want to add that element of customization. So we like the idea of letting you take a certain weapon that you really like and enchant it to an even higher level with better stats. So that way you're not locked into, because we're afraid if we added new items to the game, you know, let's say we add like 10 or 20 specially craftable items. Well, I mean, once you get them, chances are you may or may not need them. Like, that happens a lot. There's hundreds of items to find in the game, but you usually focus on just a few that work out really well for you. So we're hoping that if you can enchant them, that will lead to a more diverse endgame situation. So we'll see. But I think there was also a question about Amazon Underground working on iPad. Unfortunately, it does not. It is limited to Android devices. Most new model Android devices should work fine with it. I've tested it on I have a Samsung tablet I've tested it with, and of course, Amazon would prefer that you use their HD Fire tablets, but any newer version of Android should be just fine. Alright, Just the Seek says, did you guys already ask about 3v3 tournaments? Let me see here. I'm not sure if there's a particular question about 3v3 tournaments. Are you referring to the arena or something else? I'll continue to read down through here and see if I missed something, but I guess I'm not sure what that question pertains to at the moment. Questions about the crashes. So I talked about the crashes a bit, and hopefully they'll be fixed to some extent, or at least helped. And the cutting off with the music. So the music thing is really weird. I've received several complaints saying that when people play on iOS, they start to play their custom music, but then the game's audio will cut it off. So part of the reason I did this whole music thing where muting the volume will cut out the audio, that was in an effort to also fix that. The thing is, I was never able to test it. No matter what I did, I could never actually start the game and play my own music library. Soda Dungeon would always take precedence. It would always switch the audio or cut it off. You know, I tried doing like a podcast type thing. I tried doing an iTunes music library thing. I couldn't really get it to work. So if anyone has any input for that, please send me a message so I can actually test that. Let's see here. Crashes, fix for the stools. No, I'm not going to fix the stools yet. Fixing the stools actually was on my list. For anyone curious, the issue with the stools, I don't know exactly what causes it, but basically, if the game is having trouble finding spawning loot at a certain level, it'll just default to a stool. So obviously that shouldn't happen too often because there's plenty of items that span a huge range of levels, but at some point, for some reason, the game will often decide to just give you 3 stools or multiple stools, like I think low-level stools too. So I'm not exactly sure what is causing the game to to not find items at that level. That's something I have to look into. The reason I haven't fixed it yet, well, two reasons. One, it's also not really stopping anyone from getting all the items. I feel like once you get to a certain point with your item find stats and a certain level in the dungeon, most people have plenty of copies of all the items, so it's not like I'm really stopping any item progression with that. But also, I think it's just kind of funny. I guess I don't want to say a bug in the game is just funny, but there were a couple posts on Reddit that I found amusing that it was almost sort of like an inside joke with the stools. So I will probably leave them for now. I'm not against fixing them, but I would say it's not a super high priority at the moment. But all right, stools. Let's see here. Dark Mage, starting a run. Gold find. A button to buy multiple relic levels is already noted. I guess not in particular. Yeah, right now, I mean, so you can do a level times 5 with a purchase, or you can just do one at a time. But I guess up to this point, I haven't really had a request for purchasing like multiple levels with the essence itself. To be honest, I guess well, let me think about that. Because I sort of have two options. With the Mystic Caps, I can have them convert to Essence, or we could set up a system that directly uses the caps for relics. I don't know which is better at the moment, but I will make a mental note of that, and maybe ask about the ability to level up the relics quicker with that regard. So I guess I just assume that once you get to a certain point with the relics and the Essence, that the Essence cost is so high that you probably wouldn't be able to level up that much at one time, unlike warping, where there's always a very high level to warp to. Like I just assumed that you wouldn't need that sort of option, but I'll make a note of that and ask around and see if that's something people are interested in. All right, noted. At level 300,000, if you don't one-shot the enemies, I'm pretty sure they'll immediately kill you. Yeah, that's something I haven't... I've tested the game into pretty high levels, but I never know what levels to really jump to. Like, I feel like players are anywhere from like level 1,000 to like 100,000 or 300,000. It's sort of insane. So it's sort of hard to pick a point in the game to try and balance for based on that. But... and then, okay, so Fosta says at level 100,000 they do that, so interesting. But that's also dependent on how you leveled your relics at that point, I would assume, so that's also what makes it tough. Okay, any plans for cloud saves? Okay, so cloud saves are tough. Cloud saves are probably the most requested feature, and it's something we really want to implement, but whenever I'm asked about it, I always kind of have to say, well, we're working on it, and we're going to do it in the future. The reason is because we want to do cross-platform saves. So we want the ability to send a save from iOS to Android to Amazon to Steam once we get to that point. The problem is that takes a lot of work on our part. And part of it's not just work that I have to do, but I have to basically get the Armor Games team to dedicate some of their time to build a back-end account-based server system. Something where you would basically... the only way to do this is to set up basically a Soda Dungeon account, where you could log in to, with your... It would basically just be an Armor Games username and password. But it would store the Soda Dungeon data on your account, and then when you log in on another device, the type of device wouldn't matter. It would just pull your data from the server. But like I said, it's sort of a large thing we have to do, and we have to get approval. Armor Games has a lot of things they focus on, Soda Dungeon just being one of those projects, and so it's sort of a big undertaking to get them to set aside enough time to do that for us, and also to make sure it's working and tested on our part. So again, cloud saves are definitely in the plan of things we're going to do. And I have talked over the logistics with one of the tech guys at Armor Games. So we have a direction of where to take it, but it's just when do we want to delve into this big project? And if anyone's curious about save cloud saves on iOS or Android. We do have that option. It's just tough because if we spend the time setting up cloud saves for just individual devices like iOS or Android, then we're going to spend a lot of time doing that, and we don't want two different cloud save systems. It's like we'd rather just build the better system to start with, but we have to wait until we have the time and resources to do it. It feels like building a lesser version of it is something we don't want to spend time on at the moment. So, and plus, getting anytime you get into native functionality on iOS and Android, it's always tough to take care of, because each platform has their own way of doing things, and so it's just there's a lot of red tape to get through to get that stuff to work. So. Cloud saves, definitely planned, definitely trying to get to it, but it's still going to be a little bit of time before we can actually get that implemented. Let's see. Cloud saves. Alright, Just the Seek says, I dislike the Rage Zerker concept. They are known to act on their own. I don't think they should buff allies. Well, I guess that's sort of a tough thing to reason out, because I don't know. Again, I don't know how many people use the Rage Zerkers, how many make them part of their team composition, and I guess it also depends at what level of the dungeon you're at. So I guess they always could buff themselves, but that's just one of those things where it's like you've got to try and extrapolate that out over X levels and just wonder how that would actually affect things. But at the same time, Rage Zerkers aren't too popular, so it probably wouldn't be a big deal, but that's always something to, again, post on the subreddit if you want to get more player feedback on. You mentioned you don't have a good way to stream the game from mobile at the moment. So I know there are ways to do that. I guess part of the reason I do it this way, if I did it from mobile, I would need some sort of casting setup, and I know that's available on Android, and I'm sure it is to some extent on iOS. It just seemed like an extra layer of hassle and setup to do. What I really should be doing, we have a build of the game that works for Windows natively, that runs as an exe, for when we eventually release on Steam. That version of the game is a tiny bit buggier, and it takes longer to build. So I generally use the Flash version up here in this window just because it builds very quickly and just overall is easier to use. The problem, of course, though, is that OBS tends to have trouble picking it up as an actual display window. That's why I just record my desktop, which is also kind of messy. But yeah, if I'm a little more prepared next time, I'll probably just try to run the Windows version, and then I won't have a problem capturing to the internal window, and then I don't have to worry about streaming. But that is something I am interested in the future, of getting a reliable way to cast the app to the desktop. So we'll certainly look into that. Okay, so Teacup before, back to the music thing, is saying, you can start the music up with headphones or swipe the menu up if the game is currently running. See, that's the weird thing. I open up the dock down here. Like, I assume you're talking about this little thing at the bottom, right? Hopefully you can see that. I can never get the music to play on top. Like, it doesn't show up. Sorry, I'm messing stuff up now. Or I guess I haven't tested extensively on the pad. I've always been testing on my phone. But they're running the same version of iOS, so I assume there's no differences between them there. So, okay, you said yes to that. Yeah, whenever I would bring the dock up, the music it would only be focused on Soda Dungeon. Like, I couldn't start up the new audio. But I'll just have to look into it more. Maybe it's something I just need to Google more or something. But okay, so probably start the music app and then switch to the game. That's something I also did. Maybe it's a specific problem, because I tested it with, I believe I tested with both Pandora and the actual built-in iOS podcast app, and I couldn't get either one to work. So I'm just curious, to Teacup of Horror, do you have? Oops. I think the latest version of iOS is 9 point something. Let me take a look here. I wouldn't assume they would change something like that so drastically between versions. Yeah, like I have iOS 9.1, and I think I have 9.2 beta on my phone. So again, you know, I'll have to check in with the subreddit and maybe try to get a better idea of how to actually do that. But anyway, all right. So 247. The Q&A actually went a little longer than I expected, or maybe I just rambled on too much. But yeah, I do aim to keep the streams between 45 minutes to an hour, somewhere in there. As always, the archive of this video will be available on Twitch shortly after, and then I think I'm going to, assuming that my local recording didn't mess up, I should be able to upload a slightly higher quality version to YouTube, and because I'd like to actually start archiving on there as well. So thank you guys for tuning in. I'm not sure how many people are actually here. I didn't have an updated count, and I think I actually forgot to get a retweet from Armor Games, or maybe I didn't. I haven't checked the Twitter for a bit, because that always helps with that kind of stuff. But as always, if you want to keep up on Soda Dungeon, I don't know how you guys found the stream today, but the subreddit is usually the most active place for information. We use our Twitter account very much as well. Those are the two main sources. You can always follow me here on Twitch, and you'll see. You can't really post on Twitch about when streams are coming up, but if you are active on Twitch, you'll see me go live with the streaming. And I usually do aim for Thursdays, but I may change the time. And then lastly, you can also follow me on Twitter if you want. I have a personal Twitter at ANPSean. I think I have it on the screen. I talk about a mix of, I mean, sometimes I talk about Soda Dungeon, but sometimes I just talk about random other stuff too. So if you want to hear me complain about stuff, feel free to follow me. But anyway, let me make sure I didn't miss any other questions. Let's see here. Any chance for a full screen option in future updates? I assume you are talking about Android, because Android by default boxes it with the home and back button. I'm not sure about that. I have to look into that. That may be a restriction with my development environment. We kind of got into a weird situation where I stopped updating my software to make sure the game ran in a stable manner, because OpenFL introduced some very large and sweeping changes to their underlying code, and there were a lot of known issues with games at that point, bringing your game from an earlier version to a newer version of the development software. I think most of that's actually been fixed, but it just makes me really nervous because Soda Dungeons is a very large repository, and has a lot of custom code and native extensions and all this kind of stuff in it. So I'm very nervous about doing a huge update like that for the sake of backwards compatibility. Regardless, the full screen update is something I'm keeping an eye out for, but it's not on the radar for now. So if it's an easy fix, I'll certainly add it in, but I wouldn't count on it too much at the moment. But anyway, I think that wraps up everything. Guys, thank you once again for tuning in. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the future updates to Soda Dungeon. As always, if you have any questions, please post on the subreddit. You can send me a private message, or send me an email too. I have a couple email addresses. You can do just anpsean@gmail.com, or like I said, the Reddit will probably work better. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will be streaming in the future, and I hope to see you guys then. Thank you.